In certain scenes, if you don't blink, it's not natural. But then if there's if there's a sort of very intense scene, then what we tend to do is we don't blink because actually we don't want to miss anything. One of the things, I mean, that's like Roger Moore quote. He always says the hardest thing is not blinking when you fire a gun, and you have to kind of get your head around that a bit, because if gunshots are going off everywhere, you have to sort of make sure that you're not closing your eyes because you might get hit.
On a Bond movie, about every 30 seconds. It's probably the most intensive question and answer session ever you'll do in your life. I've made a few movies now, not a lot, but the sheer volume of questions is just unbelievable. And even then, they are filtered down so that only really 5 or 6 people are asking them. Now, you don't get everyone on the crew asking, otherwise you'll go nuts. But it is very important to deal with all of them, because if you go, I'm too busy now, don't ask me that, it's going to have repercussions on you in 3 weeks' time. Nobody's going to ask you a question unless they absolutely need to know an answer. And what you find is that you shoot a scene, the minute you stop, suddenly in it comes, and we need this. In 3 weeks' time, where the back of the plane falls off, do you want the thing to fall open or closed to the left or the right? Do you want a Lamborghini or Ferrari to fall out of the back? The helicopter. The rotors are only so big they fit in. Do you want it to have 5 blades or 4? It just goes on. And you better answer those questions, because otherwise it'll come back to haunt you.
I mean, I was even wondering about whether this was a good title. I now think it's a great title, but when I first read it, I thought, well, I have to do better than this. But, it kind of grows on you, and I think it's terrific. So it's a tough business, that, getting good titles.
Well, how much discussion was there? I mean, what were some of the alternate titles?
Well, I don't know whether we had, but there was a time when we started really working on the script when we thought, well, we won't call it that, we'll just call it Bond 19. And see what happens, because the world is not enough is the family motto, which out of Fleming's mind. So for a long time it was just Bond 19, and then we thought, well, what are we going to call it? And then, well, we tried things, I can't remember what they were, but they were pretty awful. And then this came back, and suddenly we thought, this is great. Why were we so hard on it?
I think they took a risk. I was scared to death every single day. I didn't want to be the nut that ruined 40 years of history. Lee Tamahori is pretty unique in that he trusts the actors, which, for me, it was great. But at times, especially when you don't know what you're doing, you gotta try to. You're left to your own resources. I watched, every single moment, especially watching Halle Berry and Pierce Brosnan. Mm-hmm. It's, just so much you can learn being around them, on screen and off.
Absolutely. He's not one of these guys that's busy getting buffed and fluffed all the time. As a matter of fact, when the hair guys would come fix his hair, the minute they'd walk off and turn their back, he'd mess it up again.
I didn't want to go too far, and I didn't want to underplay it as well. It's a heightened reality, and these are larger-than-life characters that you're dealing with. But one doesn't want to be, chewing the furniture, and also you don't want to be so subtle that you're underplaying everything. So it's striking a balance between the two, and Lee and I would tinker around with stuff. Even when we were shooting it, he'd sort of say, I'd go a bit further with that, or do a bit less, or
She plays Bond at his own game. I think she taps into Bond's weakness for women, knowing full well that that's what it is. Having come from, she's got this privileged position amongst Bond girls. The most direct access she's going to have to his vulnerability is by using her sex to get it. And I think in that way, if James Bond didn't ever let himself get involved with women, he would be possibly an even more unstoppable force. You'll have to look to the DVD. I think there's a whole other scene which we shot and then reshot because it was too much.
We do have a problem almost everywhere with the gun being pointed out straight at the viewer. And so our European poster has Bond in the traditional, the gun pointed up in the air near his face. And we use that more traditional Bond style for the European ones.